outside the nucleus, inside protons and neutrons. Protons and neutrons are subatomic particles that people thought a while ago in the 20th century were the sort of fundamental units of matter, but turns out that they further break down into quarks. So those types of things interact through this thing called the strong nuclear force. This is this third fundamental force. Then there's also the weak nuclear force, and it turns out something like neutrinos will interact through that. So there's just all kinds of things going on. Particle physics has a large family of particles, but as far as the fundamental forces go, we've got the four. Now, I'm kind of giving you the rehash of this before we start reading because this is going to come up, and it's basically good to get a summary now so that when we're in the weeds of it, it doesn't feel like you're sentence by sentence learning this or hearing this. It's sort of like you're getting the big spiel first. So these four fundamental forces, gravitation, E&M, electromagnetism, that is strong nuclear force and weak nuclear force. The problem is, the issue is that there is nothing quite unifying all four yet. So as you probably can imagine, the three, E&M, strong nuclear force and weak nuclear force, these are sort of kind of unified depending on the energy regimes that you're looking at. People have attempted sort of a unification of these three forces and have even succeeded to some extent and have probably been too happy about it, because unifying those three, there is still some hope. But really where grand unification is lacking is unifying these three with gravitation and sort of bringing together gravitation and what that means along with these other forces of nature, and finding the particle nature of gravitation, if there is one, and overall sort of those discrepancies between general relativity and quantum mechanics, these two different realms of physics, these two different scales of physics, not really seeing eye to eye and having these sort of internal issues between them, sort of like a marriage. Well, not a marriage, actually the opposite of a marriage, sort of like two quarreling sides of physics that we want to marry together because we would like for them to have a unification so that we can rest easy that everything makes sense in a more consistent way. But there are two quarreling parts of physics that currently do not have a unification. And people have tried and failed, and Einstein tried. This was what he died trying. He wanted to have a more unified grand unification theory, is what he called it, GUT, grand unified theory, which would subsume and marry all these parts of physics together, and everything would fall under that more general theory. So a theory that's even more general than general relativity, for example, because remember, GR doesn't really give us anything about quantum mechanics and the particles that we keep discovering, right? So it's sort of this issue. There's an issue like where if general relativity does not do a good job or any job of saying anything about the particles that we experience and have discovered, then it's sort of lacking in that field, if you will. And quantum mechanics has certain bizarrenesses that are not explained in general relativity, and that too is sort of the complaint of a lot of these classical physicists. So both sides have issues with the other side, and they are, like I said, two quarreling partners, two quarreling parts of physics. So I wanted to tell you all about this because this is what we're about to launch into with this chapter called Unification from A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. And he's going to take us through what we have kind of gone through already in the past, where we have talked about unification a few times at least, because this is it. This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to find a unified theory of everything, a unified theory of physics that will subsume everything underneath it, but it's incredibly difficult. And it's very challenging for any one person or even a body of people to kind of come up with it. And